Today, we're diving into the enchanting world of Final Fantasy V. This game is often overshadowed by many fans due to it being the successor to the revolutionary Final Fantasy IV and the predecessor to the legendary Final Fantasy VI, but that doesn't mean it's a bad game. In fact, it's actually one of my favorite games in the franchise. From the incredible open world design to the mesmerizing job system and the ability to customize your playstyle, it's no wonder this game captivated the hearts of millions. If you're a fan of epic tales, unforgettable characters, and strategic gameplay, you're in for a treat. I'll be 100%ing the game, critiquing the story, gameplay, and overall experience, all while going for that juicy platinum trophy at the end. So, without further ado, let's embark on an adventure of a lifetime and answer the simple question: Final Fantasy V, was it any good? Developed and published by Square Enix with a team of only 45 people, first graced the gaming world in 1992 in Japan. Final Fantasy V's development took place during a particularly challenging time for Square. The company was under immense pressure to deliver a worthy successor to Final Fantasy IV, which was highly acclaimed for its narrative and gameplay. Despite these challenges, the team persevered and managed to create a unique and engaging experience. The team consisted of some familiar names. It was directed by series creator Hironobu Sakaguchi, who, prior to the release of Final Fantasy IX, called this his favorite Final Fantasy game. The soundtrack was composed by the extremely talented Nobuo Uematsu. The characters, images, and title logo designs were created by Yoshitaka Amano, and the monsters were designed by Tetsuya Nomura. Following its immense success, it was later released internationally, captivating RPG enthusiasts from all corners of the globe. It's the fifth installment in the iconic Final Fantasy series, and it brings forth a vast and dynamic world, rich storytelling, and innovative gameplay mechanics. According to a GamePro magazine in May of 1993, the Japanese authorities had actually asked Square not to release this game during a school day because school children would skip class to wait in line for the game. I can definitely relate to that. I used to call in sick whenever a new WoW expansion would release. Despite its critical success in Japan, the game was initially skipped for an international release. It wasn't until the release of the Final Fantasy Anthology for the PlayStation 1 in 1999 that English speakers finally got to experience the game. This delayed release only increased the game's mystique and made it even more sought after by fans. Like with the previous games, Final Fantasy V has been re-released many times, such as on the Game Boy Advance in 2006, which included 4 new jobs, updated graphics, and even a new dungeon with an optional super boss. There's also the Pixel remaster, both on Steam and consoles, which is what I'll be playing. However, this remaster is based on the original Final Fantasy V, released in 1992 on the SNES and Famicom, and does not include any additions from the GBA version. The Pixel remaster does add some quality of life changes though, such as the option to boost skill, experience, and ABP gains by up to 4 times, the auto battle, which allows you to speed up combat, quick saving when you enter a new area, a map with a treasure tracker, as well as various balancing changes. They also significantly improved the graphics, breathing new life into the game's world. These quality of life features help to introduce the game to a newer, modern audience, while still keeping true to the original game. Before getting into detail, I'll give you a brief SparkNote summary of the story. The game takes place in a vast realm blessed with mystical crystals. These crystals hold immense power and balance the forces of the elements. But, as with all great stories, trouble brews in paradise. An evil sorcerer named Exdeath seeks to take control of all the crystals and plunge the world into chaos and darkness. I thought his name was just silly, but he's actually a pretty cool character. In the midst of all the turmoil, we meet our unlikely heroes: Bartz, Lena, Galoof, and Ferris. Together, they must master the power of the crystals and put an end to Exdeath's tyranny once and for all. Now let's talk about what sets Final Fantasy V apart from its predecessors. The gameplay consists of a traditional turn-based combat system, but one of the standout features is its job system. The job system from Final Fantasy III is back and better than ever. Players have the freedom to customize their character's abilities and skills by assigning different jobs such as the Knight, Black Mage, White Mage, Thief, chemist, and many more. There are 22 jobs in total, and you can mix and match any ability from other classes to create custom classes essentially. For example, I use the learn ability from my blue mage job as a monk, so I could still learn blue magic when I get hit, even without being a blue mage. Speaking of which, this game was the first to introduce blue magic, which allows you to learn some enemy spells cast upon you. For example, to learn the spell Flash, I have to let the enemy cast it on my blue mage, and then I can learn it and use the ability for myself. However, they can be tough to learn sometimes, like how to give an ether to this enemy to cast Flash because they didn't have enough mana to use it by default. I'm not sure how you would know which spells you can learn and which spells you can't. I had to look up a guide to make sure I didn't miss any. Blue magic is a super interesting mechanic and a great addition to the game because you can get some very powerful spells such as White Wind, which can full heal your entire party, Mighty Guard, which will fully buff your entire party with Protect, Shell, and Float, 1,000 Needles, the famous attack of the Cactuar, although the Cactuar would not make an appearance until Final Fantasy VI, Dark Spark, which reduces the target's current level in half, and even the level 5 Death spell, which instantly kills any enemy whose levels are a multiple of 5. You can cheese bosses like Atomos to reduce their level to a multiple of 5 and then one-shot them with a level 5 Death. It's just amazing. But, like I said, I hate the RNG of learning the abilities. Take the spell level 2 Old for instance. This blue magic can be a pain to obtain. You first have to have a blue mage with a level divisible by 2, and you have to use the control ability from the Beastmaster job. You also need another party member to be a chemist. The chemist job allows you to mix different items you have to buff your party or attack your enemies, just like Riku does in Final Fantasy X. It has lots of potential. You must use their mix ability to combine a Phoenix Down and a Dragon Fang, which you then use to buff the enemy with Reflect. Then, and only then, can you mind control the enemy and command it to cast the spell on themselves and pray that it randomly lands on your blue mage to learn it. You begin as the basic Freelancer job, which allows you to choose any 2 jobs abilities, but you start out with nothing. As you progress through the game, your characters level up and their jobs level up with them, and once you master them, you can unlock new abilities and even combine skills from various classes to create very powerful hybrids. Most jobs have one locked-in ability and one open slot for any ability you've mastered. This progression system encourages you to experience and strategize as you unlock new skills. One of my favorite job combinations include the Archer's Rapid Fire ability with the Ninja's Dual Wield. Rapid Fire allows you to attack 4 times per weapon, and with Dual Wield you have 2 weapons, so that gives you 8 attacks in total in 1 turn. This absolutely breaks the game, and I didn't find out about this combo until later in the game. The Samurai is pretty OP too. When you eventually obtain Masamune, it gives you the first strike ability and Zenonage, which hits hard as fuck by throwing Gil at all your enemies. Jobs are not only used in combat though. For instance, you can use the Thief's Find Passages ability to detect hidden passageways, which usually contains treasure or shortcuts. You're able to swap jobs on the fly, and this innovative job system adds depth and replayability as you can experience with different combinations to suit your preferred playstyle. Exploration is another significant aspect of FF5's gameplay. As you journey through the game's vast world, you'll encounter diverse environments from lush forests to treacherous dungeons. Exploring these areas allows you to uncover hidden treasures, discover optional quests, and interact with NPCs who provide valuable information and assistance. Towns feel bigger and more fleshed out than previous games, but most towns don't have any collectibles this time, so there's not as much reason to thoroughly explore them. They did fix this in FF6 though. Boss battles in FF5 are intense and strategic. These encounters often require careful planning and party coordination to overcome. And this is where the job system shines. It allows players to adapt their party's abilities from boss to boss. It's all about finding the right combination and exploiting the enemy's vulnerabilities. And let's not forget about the iconic summoning system. FF5 introduces a vast array of summoned creatures which can be called upon in battle to unleash devastating attacks. They are mostly acquired by defeating them in battle. Furthermore, the game offers a sort of side quest system in the form of optional bosses to defeat for powerful rewards, such as unlocking the Mime class or defeating Odin for his summon. Overall, Final Fantasy V offers a rich and engaging gameplay experience. It strikes the perfect balance between linear progression and open exploration, ensuring a sense of adventure while maintaining an interesting storyline. With its unique job system, strategic battles, exploration, and side quests, the game provides endless opportunities for customization and growth. Whether you prefer a party of spellcasting mages, agile thieves, or mighty warriors, Final Fantasy V allows you to tailor your playstyle to suit your preference. As for the characters in this game, you can tell they put a lot more detail in the animations this time around. The facial expressions the characters make are much more noticeable, and you can see when they laugh or make this eyes wide open face, and I love it. Of course, no Final Fantasy game would be complete without its memorable characters. Your party consists of 5 members, but you can only use 4 at a time. The first being Bartz, our adventurous protagonist. He has a strong sense of justice and a connection to the crystals. He becomes a central figure in the game's narrative and is skilled in a variety of jobs, making him a versatile and reliable party member. Lena, the princess with a kind heart, embarks on a quest to protect her kingdom. Galoof is a seasoned warrior with a mysterious past. He brings experience and wisdom to the group, having fought in countless battles throughout his life. Krill, Galoof's granddaughter, is a spirited and resourceful young girl who we meet later in the game. She possesses powerful magic abilities inherited from her lineage. Despite her youthful appearance, Krill proves to be a valuable asset to the party, both in terms of magic and emotional support. And then there's the mysterious Faris, a pirate captain with secrets of their own. Faris is known for her courageous and independent nature, as well as her exceptional skills as a thief. She adds agility, wit, and a touch of swashbuckling charm to the party. Together, they form an unlikely yet tightly knit group destined to save the world. One thing I don't like though is that you can't name your party members except for Bartz, which I renamed to Squall. Other notable characters not in your party include Sid, a renowned engineer and inventor who plays a significant role in the game. He's known for his expertise in airship technology and mechanics. And then there's also his young grandson Mid, who is a talented engineer in his own right. He shares his grandfather's passion for airship technology and assists Sid in repairing and upgrading our airship. If you played FF16, you may have recognized these names, as there's a Sid and Mid in that game as well. I love the references between all the games. Side note, they also added a spoony bard in FF16, a reference to FF4 which I just found hilarious. Now for the trophies. Here I'll go into a little more detail about the story as we get each trophy. The first one we get is Take the First Step. This is for saving Lena and Galoof and having them join the party. The game starts out with King Tycoon speaking to Princess Lena, telling her he senses a disturbance and he must go to the Wind Shrine and protect the Wind Crystal as he flies off on his Windrake. He gets there too late though, as the crystal shatters in front of him, which causes the wind to stop. Moments later, a meteorite crashes into the ground near Castle Tycoon, where the king just departed from, and we meet our protagonist Bartz and his faithful chocobo Boko. We find and save Princess Lena and an old mysterious man named Galoof, who were both knocked out by the meteorite crash. Galoof lost his memory from the crash, but as soon as he hears Lena mention the Wind Shrine that her father traveled to, he knows he must go there. Bartz doesn't initially want to join them, but Boko convinces him otherwise, and so they join the party and we head in that direction. Next, we get Essence of the Wind for receiving power from the Wind Crystal. We make for the Wind Shrine, but to get there, we need a ship. We stumble across a newly opened cave caused by the meteor, which then leads us to a pirate cave. We sneak past the pirates and attempt to take their ship, but the captain Faris catches us red-handed and ties us up and locks us in their jail below deck. However, the captain has a change of heart after she notices Lena has the same pendant as her. She wonders, could they be somehow connected? She frees us and sets sail for the Wind Shrine. Lena asks how the ship can sail if there's no wind, and Faris introduces us to her pet Hydra and best friend Sildra, who carries the boat across the sea. We arrive at the Wind Shrine and make it to the top of the temple where we find the shattered crystal. Here we see an image of King Tycoon, and he tells us we are the 4 chosen warriors of light and to protect the other 3 crystals. The trophy pops and the remaining crystals lend us their blessing as we receive our first jobs of the game. The knight, These have strong physical attacks, and you can learn abilities that let you equip two-handed weapons, heavy armor, shields, and swords. I use two-hand for a lot of my characters because it doubles the damage of your weapon. They also have the cover ability that takes hit for allies who have low HP, which is super handy. And then there's the monk. They don't use any weapons and are very powerful in the early game. Their notable abilities include kick, which hits all enemies for a decent amount of damage, and counter, which automatically attacks back against enemies who hit you. Next you have the blue mage. This is arguably one of the most useful jobs in the game. It is so versatile. This is the first game that introduced blue magic, which allows you to learn powerful enemy abilities by getting hit by them in combat. Learning some of these can be very annoying because your blue mage has to get hit by them directly to learn it, but they did fix this in FF6. Next you have the thief, and they focus on speed in combat and use light armor as well as knives for weapons. They can use steel to obtain useful items like the Genji armor later. Then you have your black mage, and this is your classic magic damage dealer. They can cast black magic such as Firaga and Thundaga, and they can even learn flare and death later in the game. And on the opposite, you have white mage. This mage heals your party. I had all my characters learn white magic at some point so that I could assign them as a healer when needed. We also got a few trophies for defeating 100, 1000, and 2000 enemies. Next, we get Essence of Water for receiving power from the water crystal, which is located inside of the Tower of Walls. We learned that the kingdom is artificially empowering the water crystal, and due to that, it is prone to shattering just like the wind crystal did. Unfortunately, we lose our ship and Sildra as they get sucked into this whirlpool. We end up in a ship graveyard and watch a funny scene where Ferris is revealed to be a woman. She was pretending to be a man this whole time because she didn't want to be the only woman on a ship. She was just a kid when she was lost at sea and these pirates found her. Without a ship, our next best bet is to fly on the Windrake, so we head for the Tower of Walls. On the way there, another meteorite falls and lands right next to the tower. We make our way to the crystal on the top floor and are thrown into a boss battle versus Garula after it attacks this knight. This guy is no match for my two-handed knight and my monk's fist of fury. We take it down with ease. We approach the water crystal, but it too shatters before our very eyes. The lone knight calls Galoof his lord and apologizes for failing to protect the crystal. He says we must hurry to the fire crystal unless we want it to share its same fate. As we know, Galoof lost his memory earlier, and this knight was the only connection to his past, but unfortunately the knight dies shortly after, leaving Galoof's past a mystery. On the bright side, the crystal shattering means we get new jobs. The first one we get is the Berserker, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's essentially a job where you have a permanent Berserk buff, which gives you 50% more damage, but you're forced to melee attack every turn and you can't choose your target. I didn't use it much, but it's neat nonetheless. Then there's the Red Mage. Similar to previous games, this job is a jack of all trades. You can wield swords like a knight, or staves, and you can attack with black magic, or you can heal with white magic, but only up to level 3. Mind you, magic goes up to level 6. So you won't be using this job in endgame, but if you master the job, you can unlock dual cast, which allows you to cast 2 spells in a single turn, which is extremely useful. This one takes a long time to level up because it requires over 999 ABP to master, so I only use it for a couple of characters just to learn dual cast. Then there's the Time Mage, and this buffs your party and debuffs your enemies. Notable spells include Haste and Hasteska to speed up your party's attacks, Teleport to get out of dungeons quickly, Float to avoid lava and other traps, and you can even learn Meteor in the endgame. Then there's the Mystic Knight. They can use Spellblade to imbue their weapon with an element of their choice. This job was very niche, so I didn't use it much, although it did come in handy for a couple fights where you could use Break to petrify and one-shot enemies. And last but not least is the Summoner. They can call upon monsters in combat such as Shiva, Ramu, or Ifrit, just to name a few. Most summons are obtained after defeating them in battle, and when used deal massive damage to all enemies. After the crystal shatters, the tower collapses with it, and we end up in the middle of the sea. Fortunately, Ferris' lovely Hydra Sildra comes to the rescue and drops us off on shore, but reveals she used the last of her strength to save us and drifts back off into the ocean. This leaves Ferris devastated, but we do learn Soldier as a summon later in the game. After that, we get 3 trophies for obtaining 10k, 100k, and 500k gil respectively. Next, we get Essence of Flame for receiving the power from the Fire Crystal. After Wall's tower is destroyed, we enter the meteorite near it and get teleported to the other side of the world to a town named Karnak, which houses the Fire Crystal. As usual, I browse the vendors in town and I find some pretty nice upgrades, so I try to buy them, but they arrest me for it. I was so hyped to get some new gear, but they just baited me. They claim they saw us come out of the meteorite and that we're in cahoots with the monsters and throw us in jail. Here we meet an old man that goes by the name of Sid. He says he is the one who built the terrible machines to amplify the crystals. He places heavy blame on himself and is ashamed he is the reason that the crystals shattered. They placed him in this jail cell for trying to turn off the Fire Crystals machine to prevent it from shattering, but not long after, the guards realize their mistake and release us from the jail to protect the crystal after they see it start to crack. We make for the Fire Crystal but are stopped by Queen Karnak, who turns into a being of pure liquid flame and attacks us. This boss is unique in that it will shift between 3 different forms. In its human form, it can cast Blaze to deal heavy fire damage. In its hand form, it can cast Shock to paralyze a party member. In its tornado form, it'll begin to heal itself using Fire. We defeat it and kill the queen in the process, but she claims it's not the machines causing the crystal to shatter, and that she was being controlled by something evil, something trying to destroy all the crystals. As we approach the crystal, a werewolf appears and recognizes Galoof, but before we can ask about who Galoof is, a mysterious being shows up and turns the machine back on, spelling inevitable doom for the crystal. We get separated from the werewolf and he sacrifices himself, telling us to save ourselves and to get to the earth crystal pronto as the crystal shatters and the area goes up in flames. Now we have a 10-minute timer to escape the crumbling castle. You get more than enough time to get out safely, and once you do, the castle blows up and the Fire Crystal shards magically land right in front of us, granting us 3 new jobs. The Beastmaster, which focuses on catching and releasing enemies for various one-time use abilities. You can also learn the control command to mind control enemies, which is necessary to learn some blue magic. The Geomancer, this job uses the terrain around them to damage their enemies. I like this job because it gave you an attack that can hit multiple enemies and cost 0 MP. The main benefit of this job though is the Find Pits ability to see holes in the ground. And lastly, there's the Ninja, which is a great job and deals a lot of damage. They can learn dual wield to equip 2 weapons and later pair it with the ranger's rapid fire ability to hit an enemy 8 times per turn. Throughout my playthrough, I got these 2 trophies for collecting 10% and 50% of all treasure chests. Next, I get Learning Elementary for learning 10 kinds of blue magic. I got this when I learned level 5 Death. I had to make sure my blue mage level was an interval of 5 and farmed it from this monster named Page 64. Job Trainee, master 1 job. There's 22 jobs in the game and each are leveled up using ability points or ABP. To master a job, you have to level it up all the way. Most jobs have between 3 and 6 levels, and I got this for mastering the Geomancer. Shortly after this, we also got Senior Worker for mastering 5 jobs. In the midst of all that, we got Field Research Basic and Advanced for completing 10% and 50% of the Bestiary. This time the game has a total of 302 entries, 6 of which are Gilgamesh alone. And next we get Endangered Creature for discovering a black chocobo. After the Fire Crystal incident, Sid is super down on himself. We head to the Library of the Ancients and find Sid's grandson Mid buried in the books as it's being overrun by monsters. We save Mid and bring him back to Sid, and he calls out the old man, telling him to shake off the blues and not to give up. Sid cheers up and we get access to a new fire-powered ship thanks to their ingenuity. After boarding the ship, Galoof gets some flashbacks and remembers why he is here now. He says he traveled here from another world using the meteorite from the beginning of the game. He sealed away an ancient evil 30 years ago, and that evil was none other than the Dark Warlock Exdeath. He is beginning to reawaken now, and Galoof came here to stop him. Same as the soldier and the werewolf from earlier, and if all the crystals are destroyed, then Exdeath will be freed. We make our way to the Earth Crystal, which is located on Crescent Island, a nod to previous FF games. Upon reaching the island, an earthquake causes our ship to sink again, leaving us stranded. We don't have much of a choice other than to venture in this nearby forest where we find a black chocobo, the last of its kind. Bart tries to mount it because here they can fly, but he comes crashing down because the bird was choking on something. The bird spits out 2 crystal shards, and we get 2 new jobs, the Bard and the Ranger. If you have a keen eye, you may have noticed that these 2 shards were from when the fire crystal shattered. The Bard can sing songs that buff or heal your party or deal damage to enemies using their harp. You can learn new songs by visiting a specific Bard after you play various pianos hidden throughout the game, but we'll get to that later. The Ranger, on the other hand, gives us access to the rapid fire ability, which, like I mentioned earlier, when you pair it with a dual wield, you can dish out a lot of damage. Now the Chocobo is able to fly, and we take off. You can only land the Chocobo inside the forest though, so it limits your ability to explore a little bit. Next we get Ancient Relic for obtaining an airship. Using the black Chocobo we got earlier, we head to Lix, which is Bart's hometown that he grew up in. Bart visits a grave and gets flashbacks to when he was a child and saw his mother die. Turns out his father passed only a few years after, and both of his parents were buried here. Varys joins him and ponders what it's like to having a father. I wonder if this is foreshadowing anything. Anyways, we rest up and visit Sid and Mid again at the Library of the Ancients, and they tell us they found the whereabouts of King Tycoon. He's headed toward the Desert of the Shifting Sand, so we head there. When you step on the sand, it moves you around, and it's a bit of a maze, but we get through it and find the king in some ruins of a town on the other side of the sands. We stalk him until he leads us over a trapdoor and drops us in. Here we get separated in some ancient underground ruins, and we try to ditch Galoof, but he finds his way back to us and scolds us. We explore the ruins, and at the end find a teleporter pad that takes us to another ancient ruins near the Crescent Island where our ship sank. Here we find our ship, and next to it there just so happens to be an airship as well. We find Sid and Mid already down here, and Sid is fascinated by what he sees. He fixes it up, and we obtain our very own airship. Next we get Hope, Essence of Earth. This is for receiving power from the Earth Crystal. While we're busy getting the airship, King Tycoon is working on amplifying the Earth Crystal, which caused the runes around it to ascend into the sky. Sid sends us on a mission to obtain some adamantite from one of the meteors when all of a sudden we get ambushed by an adamantus. We return to Sid and he upgrades our ship so that we can fly high enough to reach the floating ruins housing the Earth Crystal. We have to take out its cannons and fight the Soul Cannon boss before we can enter the ruins. This boss wasn't too bad. I just cast level 5 death to take out the ads, and then I focus my attacks on the main boss. We catch up with King Tycoon, and we get thrown into battle with another boss fight. This boss only has 1600 HP, however, he gets revived 4 times before you can finally defeat him. He levels up each time he revives, and in the last phase, you can actually use level 5 death to finish him off. King Tycoon does an evil laugh and rushes into the crystal room, but before he can destroy it, another meteorite crashes nearby, and our newest party member Krill comes to save the day. Galoof's memory fully recovers after seeing his granddaughter, and King Tycoon returns to his old self. King Tycoon immediately recognizes his long-lost daughter Ferris, but he addresses her as her birth name, Sarissa. These happy moments are short-lived as the Earth Crystal shatters before us, unleashing Exdeath into the world. He takes us out and shows us just how powerful he really is. Unfortunately, King Tycoon is mortally wounded in this attack. We absorb the power of the crystal, giving us our last set of jobs. The Dragoon, Dancer, Samurai, and Chemist. The Dragoon uses heavy armor and spears while utilizing the iconic jump ability. Honestly, this job did not feel very good to play, it felt very weak. The Dancer was a really unique job. Instead of attack, they use Dance, which can have one of 4 effects. It can confuse the enemy, drain their HP, drain their MP, or use Sword Dance to attack for 4 times damage, and upon mastery they're able to equip ribbons. It's a cool concept, but I found myself using other abilities instead of using ribbons for most of the time. This is another thing I felt they improved a lot in Final Fantasy VI. The Samurai is a fantastic job. It has strong melee attacks as well as Zenonage, which basically is just guild toss that hits all enemies. I use Zenonage a lot to farm mobs quickly, but it takes a lot of money, but it is worth the damage. You can also obtain Masamune later in the game, which gives you first strike, allowing you to always have the first attack in combat. That was very useful, and I use that for the rest of the game. The Chemist uses Mix to combine 2 items for a wide variety of effects. This job is very powerful when in the right hands, but I didn't use it much. Next, we get a whole new realm for arriving in Galoof's world. Back at the airship, Lena and Ferris mourn their father. Galoof, now having his memory back, recalls that he came here from his planet 30 years ago along with 3 others. They call themselves the Dawn Warriors, and they sealed Exdeath away with the power of the crystals that we just shattered. Galoof and Creel use one of the meteors and return to their world so they can devise a new plan to defeat Exdeath again. Bartz, Lena, and Ferris ignore Galoof's request that they not come with him due to there being no way back. By collecting adamantite from the nearby meteorites and talking to Sid and Mid, we activate a warp point at Castle Tycoon and it takes us to the other world. After all that, we get Entrusted Hearts for obtaining a submarine. After arriving on Galoof's planet, we get kidnapped by Exdeath's goons, and he puts us in a jail cell beneath his castle. He threatens to kill the party if Galoof does not stand down, so what does Galoof do? He takes up the reins of Creel's Windrake and flies to Exdeath's castle by himself to free his friends. We take over control of Galoof inside the castle, and we encounter Gilgamesh again. He gives us some funny dialogue, and he's a bit of a coward, so he flees after one hit. Galoof breaks the party out of jail, and we again join forces. We fight our way out of the castle and head back towards Galoof's home. On the way back, we come across a forest filled with Moogles. They shower us with gifts and even give us a Moogle costume to dress up in. Krill also has a Moogle at home, and using their telepathic powers, the Moogles at the forest tell her to come and save us. With the last of its strength, the Windrake flies Krill to the Moogle forest and picks us all up. We arrive back at Galoof's castle, where it turns out he is a king. This comes as quite a surprise to the party because he never acted like royalty. They ask why he never told them, and he says it must have just slipped his mind. After reuniting with Galoof and Krill, we visit Galoof's friend and fellow warrior of Dawn, Kelger. He is the leader of the werewolves, like the one we saw earlier at the Fire Crystal. We learn from him that Bart's father Dorgan is from this planet, and he was also one of the warriors of Dawn who sealed Exdeath away oh so many years ago. He never came back here though because he had a son and stayed with Bartz to raise him. We're told to visit the turtle sage Guido, but Exdeath sinks their cave into the sea and forces us to return to the air on our Windrake. After that, we go to meet the last warrior of Dawn, the great King Zezot, who intends to lead an assault on the barrier towers so they can take the fight back to Exdeath. We go to his castle, but he's nowhere to be found, so Bartz takes this chance to look up some naughty books in the library, unsuccessfully I might add. We meet Zezat on his ship, and he's in the midst of attacking Exdeath's castle when we arrive. His plan is to distract Exdeath with the ships above water and sneak into the castle using a submarine. Before we can execute the plan though, we get attacked by Gilgamesh for a 3rd time. Being the coward he is, he runs as soon as we defeat his companion, and he tries to knock us off the boat, but our Windrake will have none of that and comes and saves us once again. We take the sub and enter Exdeath's castle, which is surrounded by a massive force field powered by the barrier towers. King Zezat explains that we must destroy the tower to bring down the shields, so he heads for the generator downstairs, and we head for the top where the antenna is. We fight the boss Atomos at the top, and this is where the blue maze shines. I cast Dark Spark to reduce its level in half, then finish it off with a level 5 death to one-shot it. We destroy the tower and the shield comes down, but at the cost of Zezat's life. He gets trapped in the generator room and is unable to escape. He tells us to go to the sub and wait for him, and this leaves Galoof in a state of denial as he waits and he waits, but Zezat never does come back. The party takes command of the sub, and the trophy pops. Next, we get powers bequeathed when Creel receives Galoof's abilities. Using the submarine, we can now reach Guido on the ocean floor. The Great Turtle Sage tells us that we must travel to the Great Forest of Moor to stop Exdeath from destroying the world's crystals there. We arrived too late though, as Exdeath sets the forest on fire. The party then gets attacked by these 4 mysterious crystal beings. We defeat them and Exdeath finally shows his face. It turns out the crystals we just destroyed were the 4 crystals we swore to protect, and now Exdeath uses their power against us. Galoof somehow musters the strength to overpower Exdeath and fights him in a one-on-one scripted battle. Exdeath casts all sorts of high-level magic at him like Flare, Holy, and Meteor, and takes him to 0 HP, but Galoof refuses to die. It takes a lot more than that for him to kick the bucket. In his final stand, Galoof finally takes out Exdeath using an unknown spell. Exdeath is forced to flee, but not before taking the crystals with him. Unfortunately though, this took a big toll on Galoof. Not even a Phoenix Down could save him. He tells us to destroy Exdeath as he fades away. This part was really sad. Galoof was a great character and a fearless leader even up until his final moments. Krill joins the party in his stead, and Galoof bestows his powers upon her. She learns all the jobs Galoof had, and the trophy pops. After that, we get Lead Operator for mastering 15 kinds of jobs. I constantly change jobs after leveling them up, and I got this after I mastered the Monk. Then we get the Return Home for defeating Exdeath and returning to the original world. With Krill now in the party, we make for Exdeath's castle to exact revenge for Galoof. Gilgamesh shows up yet again, and I steal the Genji helm from him before Exdeath banishes him into the void. We continue on, dispelling his illusions and defeating his monsters until we finally confront Exdeath. He plans to return the Earth to how it used to be, whatever that means, so we have to stop him. He has a large health pool and can cast various high-level magic attacks. He starts off using Doom, which insta-kills a target after 30 seconds. I took this opportunity to learn this spell from our Blue Mage. I then used Haste Go in my party and spam my hardest hitting spells on him until he goes down. Following Exdeath's defeat, however, he shatters the remaining crystals despite our efforts, kicking off his plan to merge the 2 planets together. We end up outside of Castle Tycoon from Bart's and Lena's world, and the trophy pops. We also run into some old friends like Bart's Chocobo Boko, who now has a wife and kids on the way. I was not expecting this at all, but I love the humor they put in all the old Final Fantasy games. It's just great. Next we get Piano Maestro for becoming a master pianist. There are 8 pianos spread across the game, each in a different town. You can walk up to it to play it, and you can hear how Bart's improves each time he plays one. Only one is missable, and you must play it before defeating Exdeath and merging the worlds. And once all 8 pianos are played, we can talk to the Bard in Crescent Island to learn new songs for our Bard job. I got the last one in the Phantom Village inside of the merged world. Now we get Item Detector for obtaining all hidden items. Same as the previous games, these are items that are acquired from objects rather than treasure chests like barrels, pots, or even from NPCs. There are 54 hidden items in total, and luckily the Pixel Remaster tracks how many you have in each location. I get the final one inside of a pot in the Phoenix Tower. During that, we also got Seasoned Hero for reaching level 50 on all party members. This came naturally playing the game. The level cap is 99, so getting to 50 was nothing special, especially with the 4 times XP boost. Next, we get Master Mimic for obtaining the secret job class. As you can probably tell by the name, the secret job is the Mime. This unique job is found inside of the sunken tower that was formerly Walt's Tower, which housed the water crystal. We can only reach the tower with our submarine airship, so we couldn't get it earlier, but now that the world is merged, we can. A 7-minute timer begins upon entering the underwater temple. If you run out of air, the game is over. At the bottom, there's a crystal, and upon approaching it, we're thrown into a battle with the famed Mimic Gogo. He says he will imitate our every move, and if we can imitate him, we will win. This is a cool little riddle. You have to not attack him for a few minutes, and then he'll reward us with his blessing, giving us access to the secret mime job. This job uses Mimic, a potent ability that copies the last move an ally used in battle. So for instance, if I use Rapid Fire on the turn before the Mimic, it will also cast Rapid Fire. This is the only job with 3 ability slots available to them as well, so it allows for a lot more customization. A bit after that, we get Management Laborer for mastering all jobs. I got this after mastering the Mimic. This one was a grind, but there are a few good spots to farm experience with the 4x multiplier. The first one is when you are at the Phoenix Tower, you can encounter a limited amount of magic pots. You can't defeat this enemy by natural means though, you must give in to its demands and give it an elixir. There are about 5 of these you can fight, and each rewards them with 400 ABP. Most jobs require from 400 to 700 ABP to master them, so one battle was easily enough to level a job 4 or 5 times at a time. However, since that is limited, I also had to grind experience in the basement of Gloof's castle. These give up to 32 ABP per battle, but you can cast level 5 death to take them all out instantly, and there's also a nearby inn to rest at to refill your MP and health. Next, we get Fabled Weapons for obtaining all 12 sealed weapons. After the world gets merged, we meet back up with Guido the Turtle, who informs us of the 12 legendary weapons they used to seal Exdeath away. They are located in a chamber inside of the sealed castle and are locked behind 12 massive doors. To unlock them, we must obtain the world's 4 tablets, each of which can open 3 doors. These tablets are hidden across the merged world in 4 different dungeons, and the first one we get is from the pyramid, which accidentally releases Bahamut into the world. Exdeath also comes back and casts more towns into the void, including Bart's own hometown. And that sent him into a rage as he flies the airship around like a crazy man. I use this tablet to unlock Masamune, Assassin's Dagger, and Excalibur. Each are very powerful and can be used by specific classes. The Masamune gives you the first attack in battle, the Assassin's Dagger has a 25% chance to inflict death on attack, and the Excalibur is a sword that deals massive holy damage. I used these newly found upgrades to slay Bahamut and learn his summon. We then get the second tablet from the Island Shrine for defeating the Wendigo. This unlocks a new boss that we can fight, the Minotaur, who tries to cast Holy on us but doesn't have enough MP to cast it, so that was pretty funny. And we learn Holy and Flare and move on to the next tablet. The third one we get is located under the water in the Great Sea Trench, and we also learn how to cast Meteor here. The last one is hidden in Istory Falls and is guarded by Leviathan. I also ran into a Tonberry here, signifying their first appearance in a Final Fantasy game. After we defeat Leviathan, we also learn how to summon him. We take all the tablets back to the sealed castle, unlock the rest of the weapons, and the trophy pops. All the weapons are good, but I use some more than others, but of course it depends which jobs you're using. The Magus Rod, for example, was useful for the Black Mage because it increases damage done by fire, ice, and lightning spells. The next one we get is Ultimate Machine for defeating Omega. Final Fantasy V was the first game in the franchise to feature Omega, which is an optional super boss that's even tougher than the final boss of the game. This boss is actually hard. I died a few times before getting it down. You can, however, be continuously stunned by bards if you want to cheese it. The only negative thing I have to say about these challenges is that they are missing the build-up. Apart from a short note in the game about their origins, there's no story regarding them. After that, we get Adventurous Wayfarer. This is for traveling to all the map locations. There are several missable locations due to the worlds merging partway through the story, but this one wasn't too bad. I got this upon entering the final dungeon in the game, the Interdimensional Rift. Next, we get Learning Genius for learning all the blue magic in the game. There's 30 blue magic spells, and as we discussed earlier, they can be annoying to learn. I got this upon learning Mind Blast from one of the final bosses in the game. In the same dungeon, we also get Ultimate Dragon for defeating Shinru. Like Omega, this is an optional super boss in the game, although when I ran into it, I was not expecting it at all. I didn't even realize it was a super boss. I opened a chest in the final dungeon, and I figured it was just another monster in a box encounter. I took it down with ease thanks to the rapid fire plus dual wield combo, and it rewards us with Ragnarok, which is another extremely powerful weapon. We finish off Legendary Treasure Hunter for collecting 100% of the chests. I got this in the last dungeon as well. We also get Field Research Professional for completing 100% of the Bestiary entries. Since I farmed out all the entries as I played through the game, the only one left was the last boss, and we get this at the same time as the next trophy. 4 Hearts Together. This is for defeating Neo X-Death and restoring peace to the world. With X-Death back and casting the whole world into the void, we must go and face him inside of the void, aka the interdimensional rift. Along the way, we run into Gilgamesh once again, but this time he's done fighting and in a stunning turn of events decides to become friends with us. This gives me the chance I need to steal the Genji shield from him. He shows up one last time as we're fighting this Necrophobe boss, and he helps us defeat it. I again use this opportunity to steal from our friend Gilgamesh and get the Genji armor. He goes out like a hero and uses self-destruct to defeat the boss, and he's finally gone for good. Damn, and I was just starting to like him. The only thing left to do now is to face X-Death once and for all. In an epic finale, he turns into a tree and casts the whole world into the void. In this form, he can petrify your party and cast Holy, Flare, Doom, and Meteor. Once he takes enough damage though, he transforms into Neo X-Death, the true final boss. He can still cast all the very powerful spells from phase 1, but this time he has 4 sections of his body that each get their own turn. They can cast even more spells as well, such as Comet, Firaga, Silence, or Roulette, which can inflict instant death to a random target. Each part of the body has a staggering 50 to 60,000 health, so this is a long battle. The party perseveres and comes out on top, which leads into the final cinematic of the game where the world and its crystals are restored. They are visited by the spirits of the previous Dawn Warriors, and they send the party back to their own world. And to end things off, we get a montage of the events throughout the game, as well as where all the characters are now. Sid and Mid are back at the underground ruins. The Mughals live in peace in their forest. Ferris and Lena become the queens of Tycoon, although Ferris is a pirate at heart and goes back to her crew. Bartz went back to his hometown to spend time near his parents. The Chocobos, Boko and Coco had their baby chicks. Krill reminisces about her grandpa Galoof and carries on his legacy. And it ends off on a beautiful note where all 4 characters share a moment together before going on their separate ways. So, was Final Fantasy any good? I would say a resounding yes. Final Fantasy V's impact on the RPG genre cannot be understated. Its innovative job system, engaging storyline, and memorable characters have left a lasting impression on both fans and game developers alike. The game's influence can still be seen in modern Final Fantasy titles, with references and nods to Final Fantasy V scattered throughout the series. The soundtrack is an absolute masterpiece. From epic battle themes to emotional melodies, the music enhances the game's atmosphere and emotional impact. Overall, I would rate the fun of this game a solid 9 out of 10, the grind for the Platinum Trophy is 6 out of 10, and the trophy's difficulty about a 3 out of 10. And there you have it, an enchanting glimpse into the world of Final Fantasy V. Whether you're a seasoned RPG veteran or a newcomer to the genre, Final Fantasy V offers an experience that shouldn't be missed. I definitely recommend playing it, and if you haven't, go ahead and check it out. Remember to hit that like button if you liked it, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel for more gaming adventures and in-depth reviews. But for now, on to Final Fantasy VI.